Hey there, everybody. Merry Christmas, first of all. And today we're going to try the impossible. We are going to try to fly the most ridiculous route with the most demanding sceneries you can imagine, and with the sliders completely maxed out, and see if we can do that without a OOM happening or a out of memory error happening from excessive VAS usage. Now, I'll tell you that I've been using FSX for a very long time, pretty much since it came out in 2006, so 8, 9 years now. I also do a lot of virtual airline flying. I have something like 1,700 or 1,800 hours accumulated with my airline across almost 200 legs. So I'm no stranger to the skies, and to a lot of the mega airports that are out there that have really enhanced our FSX experience. What's furthermore is I love FTX Global and FTX Vector, which, as everybody knows, has significantly enhanced the flight simming experience that we've had over the last couple of years. I also use Pilot's FS Global 2010 Mesh, which I also think is a great add-on and adds a lot of depth to the world. And I love Orbic Sceneries, 29 Palms, FSDT, Flight Beam, Fly Tampa. I don't know. There's so many great developers out there that I absolutely love. And of course, I love add-on aircraft, PMDGs and A2As, and all the Captain Sims and all the other Quality Wings, all the other great um, uh, aircraft makers out there. The problem is when you put them all together, FSX, being a 32-bit program, cannot handle it, and that's because it's a really old program. It was probably never anticipating to have this long of a serviceable lifespan, and to see the amazing works that these developers are putting out. But when you put them all together, all those polys, all that high-quality scenery and complex aircraft models, will bring FSX to its knees, and the virtual address space will cap out at 4 gigabytes, which is the most that any 32-bit program can facilitate capacity for, and the simulator will just crash. So, when FSX SE came out, I noticed some very strange things in the changelog that I'll share with you in a minute, that I thought to myself, well, I wonder if this thing can manage VAS better. And today we're going to put it to the test. So first of all, let's look at the settings. So the settings we're using today are absolutely ridiculous. 2560 by 1440. Uh, you know, twice as many pixels as you would get in 1920 by 1080. DirectX 10 is on, lens flare, advanced animations, global text resolution is maxed out, target frame rate is unlimited. Aircraft, everything's checked here. Scenery, this is where things get a little bit crazy. So level of detail, large, mesh complexity is way up there. Mesh resolution is at 5 because with the pilot's mesh, they encourage you not to set it all the way to the right, but 5 will prevent strange terrain anomalies that you'll get if you set it all the way to the right. Texture resolution 7 centimeters. Water effects, because I'm using DirectX 10, use high 2x, because otherwise you'll get some shimmers. Land detail textures are on. Scenery complexity, everybody knows, if you've been flying between two mega airports or two highly detailed sceneries, you cannot set it this high. Extremely dense is a death sentence. There's zero possibility of being able to complete highly detailed circuit with these settings. Just the autogen will bring FSX to its knees if you're using, let's say, global vector, and you're flying at a really nice airport, or flying in between two really nice airports. You're gonna kill the simulator. Ground scenery shadows I keep off because a lot of textures are baked in with shadows anyway, so there's no point in having them on. Scenery effects details are high. Weather, 90 miles out, natural, visualization, cloud coverage densities to max. Traffic, 40 airline traffic density, and by the way, I'm using Aerosoft's My Traffic 2013. So there's going to be a ton of birds in the air. General aviation traffic's at 20. Airport vehicle density is at maximum, and I'm using GSX from FSDT, so that hurts. Ships and ferries 40 and 40. I keep road vehicles off because sometimes they create anomalies with DirectX 10, but this is pretty damn demanding on your system. This is way more than the average person is capable of simming with FSX. In fact, let me take that back. It's more than FSX can handle, period. But hey, we're bringing it up to 1,000 just because we want to try to see if we can break FSX SE. Now, let's go ahead and start loading the flight. So the flight that I'm doing today is a pattern that I fly, which is absolutely ridiculous. I'll tell you that I use a stress test all the time, where I take my aircraft from FSDT's KLAX over to a freeware version of KONT. I'm sorry, over to a freeware version of KLGB, which is Long Beach Airport. Then over to the PDZ approach to a freeware version of KONT. I wish I knew the name of the developer off the top of my head. I'll put them in the description. But amazing freeware airports, KLGB and KONT. I believe you can get them both on AvSim, so go check them out. But the problem is that when you're flying from a ridiculously high poly and high resolution airport such as FSDT's KLAX to not one but two other ridiculously high quality airports, and along the way you're looking at a ridiculous amount of vector data, which of course you'll find in Southern California, and also a ridiculous amount of autogen, as of course it's Southern California, it's highly populated. You know, you're going to kill the simulator. It's plain and simple. In most cases, in all my years of using that stress test, I'll make it out to KLGB in some cases with lesser settings than what you just saw there. Usually that means my autogen is at just very dense, and then the complexity is at very dense, and then the autogen density is at just dense, and usually it'll die when it starts turning on the PDZ approach to KONT. But because once again we're going to try to break it, not only did we up the settings big time, but we also are going to add another little tidbit in there, and that tidbit is that we're going to fly from KLAX out to the KLGB scenery over to PDZ, but we're not going to turn to KONT. Nope, we're going to go on out to Orbix's amazing rendition of Palm Springs, which is a huge photo real scenery with ridiculous amounts of mesh data, ridiculous amounts of autogen, ridiculously high quality scenery, and then we're going to turn around and then try to make it to KONT. So we have 4 high quality airports, including 1 region, a ton of vector data, our autogen density and complexity are both completely maxed out, and we're using Rex Essential plus Overdrive textures for clouds, and for the stock airports that are in the area. I mean, I just do not see how this thing can survive, but in some of my other tests, it has done an amazing job of managing VAS, so we'll see. I'm going to go ahead and open up my Process Explorer here, and we will open up the FSX. So here we're going to look at our VAS, so virtual size is virtual size is the VAS. Then you have the WS, which is the working set private data, shareable data, and some other components pull up into the VAS size. So working set private data is the number that you'd see if you hit Control-Alt-Delete and opened up your task manager or program manager, whatever you call it, task manager, I guess, and looked at the memory number there. That's the working set private number. So, alright, let's go ahead and get this party started. So, first of all, as you can see here on the ground, we're sitting at 2.3 gigs of VAS. Now, once that reaches 4 gigabytes, that's when the simulator dies, because once again, it's a 32-bit program, and once it hits 32, it's game over. I'm going to very quickly set up our departure here. It's going to be at 13,000 feet. Let's program this bad boy. And the aircraft we're using today is the AeroSim 787. Avionics-wise, it's a joke. I mean, it's like as bad as the stock 737 in terms of avionic realism, but it is a high poly, high quality looking aircraft that is no chump in terms of VAS consumption, and it looks good. It's kind of fun to fly around in. So you guys can kind of look around the cockpit. I mean, it's one of the highest quality virtual cockpits I've seen. It looks great, but the aircraft itself kind of sucks. So I'm going to push myself down a little bit, push myself back a little bit. Cool. Reset my view, and I think we're pretty much ready to go. Let me make sure my flaps are in the right position. Cool. So let's go ahead and push switch this bad boy on. You can see KLAX there. You may see a little bit of texture popping. You know, that's something that I think is more of a bandwidth issue of the old FSX engine. It doesn't take it does not make good use of multi-core processors and modern-day graphics cards, so it tends to have some texture popping in there as it tries to figure out what the heck it's supposed to be doing. Rotating at 120, I believe. So you may see a little bit of texture popping in there, but that's just the realities of this old bird. So here we go. So we're gonna fly out here over the ocean. Put gear up here. This is not a textbook flying tutorial, by the way. I'm just flying just to try to kill the simulator. But I'm gonna fly out here over the ocean. Gears up now, and we're gonna turn on in. Let me turn this up to 250 because this thing does a terrible job of managing VNav. What am I doing? Come on. Stop getting finicky. Alright, and we will do vertical speed, 1800, lateral nav, autopilot, and auto throttle. And the flaps come up. Look at that water. By the way, the water textures that I'm using, or the wave animations that I'm using, are not from Rex. They are actually Gizmo's 4096 wave animations. I mean, they look absolutely beautiful in DirectX 10 because the shader from the DirectX 10 fixer and the Rex water animations do not play nicely, so it looks very, very good. Alright, so we're on our turn. Let me pull up FPS here for you. Right now we're doing 29, 25 frames. I don't know. It's going up and down all over the place. So, it is what it is. So, I'll show you guys the flight plan real quickly, and then I'll shut up for a little while. So we're going to go out here from KLAX, KLGB, and head on over to PDZ, where we normally turn over to KONT, but as you can see, we go out to KPSP. KPSP, we're going to turn around, come back to KONT, and land at runway 26 right. Just a direct vector. So that's 1 KLAX, 2 KLGB, 3 I damn near want to call it a 2-for-1, right? Because KPSP is not only a big old scenery, but also the actual airport, which is ridiculously high quality. So, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4 mega airports, ridiculous amounts of textures and polys and VAS, and if it makes it through this, I'm going to say that it will make it through just about anything. And of course, these are settings that I probably wouldn't even fly with on a regular basis. See some of the texture popping over there, KLAX. So, we are intentionally trying to break it. Alright, we're at 10,000, so switch this off. I don't even know why I'm acting like I'm really flying here. Taking it all seriously, switching off lights and crap, but whatever. Don't want want some troll to be like, oh, you forgot to turn off your landing lights above 10,000 feet. So I'll just avoid the conflict, and we'll keep it at 250 knots, just to allow it to soak in the autogen. So let's take a quick look outside. So here you can see KLGB, beautiful, beautiful rendition. And let's look at what it's doing to autogen here. I'm sorry, too vast here. So we are at almost at 3 gigs, So it's building. You know, the autogen is mounting. And once again, at 4 it dies. So we only have about a gig, and we have 2 mega airports to go, including a mega region. No idea if she'll make it. This is the first time I'm doing this route. Like I said, God, that scared the hell out of me. This is the first time I'm doing this particular route, even though I've done the KLAX to KONT by way of KLGB and PDZ before. But I've never tried this craziness. I literally just installed KPSP in this version of the FSX Steam Edition. It was weird. We had a heavy frame rate lag there. Not sure what that's about, but right now it looks like it's smoothed out, but it had a heavy lag there. I wonder if that had anything to do with the autogen. Let's take a look. Like maybe it like dumped the autogen cache. Oh yeah, so look at that. So we went from 2.9 down to 2.7 right when we left the KLGB area. And that was kind of funny too, because it like dropped down to like 5 frames for a couple of seconds, and then look, and then it reloaded KLGB behind us, and look, it jumped back up to 2.9. So it's almost like once it passes like these ridiculously heavy areas, and maybe if you're in the VC and you're not looking at it, it may flush that stuff. I'm not really sure. I'm not an engineer. I have no idea what the logic is behind it, but sure enough, saved us like 200-300 megs of VAS. So we'll go back in the cockpit, and while we're on our way to PDZ, I will look at the changelog with everybody real quickly. So here's a changelog that Dovetail published. So there's a couple of things in here I'd say to pay attention to, and Pete Dawson, who is, you know, probably the most respected developer in the flight simming community. He's the guy who makes FSUIPC, which is, you know, widely considered to be the most critical add-on to FSX, or module to FSX. He said that when he was looking in the code to figure out where to hook FSUIPC to this new Steam edition, he said that, I believe his quote was, the changes were significant, meaning that the code was not just you know, some multiplayer stuff and some, you know, texture max load changes, but it was some significant stuff under the hood. And so if you look at this, number one, Dovetail used the VS 2013 compiler, and that's the code compiler, which allows for efficiency in the code of the program itself. Now, Pete did look at that and said that, you know, it leaves almost nothing to be desired right now. It is about as clean of code as he's seen in modern day programming. So the compiler itself seems to be a hell of a lot better, but the compiler by itself is not necessarily going to flip the simulator. It's just the way that the code is managed and how clean the code is and how efficient the code is. But some other things that are in here that are kind of strange, or not strange, but kind of cool. In fact, they increase vertex and index buffer and the number of buffers, right? That's something you can usually do to the CFG anyway, so I'm not sure how deep they got into that to change the index and the vertex buffers. But another big thing that's here is that they put in a fix to flush all levels of detail in terrain cache. So that kind of brings me up to that KLGB situation we just saw, where it seems as though the sim is doing an outstanding job of managing terrain cache and texture cache. So it's almost like if you're not looking at it, it may remove it from the environment or down scale it to save you the VAS. Because you know, once again, I did a trip from LAX to Long Beach to KONT that with settings that I would never in a million years dream of doing with regular FSX, and it handled it like a champ. I really didn't see any texture popping on that one, But I'm assuming that the way it's able to manage VAS has something to do with how it's dealing with this terrain cache flushing, and then texture composition to prevent fail and crash, and that's pretty much it. Got the UI automation core, which is great to stop you from crashing when you're selecting menus and stuff like that in game. The one other thing I would say that I've done with my FSX is when I'm in my library and I right click and go to properties, I take off the enable Steam overlay while in game. I mean, I don't really have any need to type to people while I'm playing the game, but you can see all the ridiculous game library I have here. No idea why I need that many games. Look at them, none are even installed too. I have all of them. So we're coming up to PDZ here. I'll go full screen once again, and let's pop on outside of the cockpit, and you can see the absolutely just ludicrous amount of autogen that is being drawn here. I mean, look at the density of those homes. Like, this would murder FSX. Absolutely would murder FSX. In fact, once, just to mess around, while I was using DX10 on FSX, I tried a flight kind of like this, and you can see a KONT out there, out the window. Its little textures loading. I mean, amazing freeware airport, just a must-have. So I would definitely encourage you to go out there and download it. And it's free, you know, what do you have to lose? Yeah, one day I was messing around with FSX and decided to peek my head into, you know, seeing how much the thing could handle, and I was at FSDT's KLAX. Let's look at VAS real quickly now that KONT's been loaded. And so KONT's been loaded, and we're pretty much at the same levels of VAS that we were at when we were over KLGB. So, and look, it unloaded, and then it loaded back up, and you could see the VAS jumped up by maybe 40 megs or something like that. So, not a big change, but just kind of interesting how it manages that. The good thing is that when those mega airports unload, they load back relatively quickly. And of course, you wouldn't have that problem if you're on approach, because you'd be looking directly at the airport. And you'd be flying a hell of a lot slower, so it wouldn't have to unload that aggressively. But anyway, so I was at FSDT's KLAX and decided to, just see if I could push it to the limit. So I did, and I maxed out everything, pretty much the same settings I had here. And I remember, and I put on 4096. That's another, really important part here, is that when you look at the change log, you see that that one of the things they did was they upped the texture max load from 1024 to 4096 by default. Now, I would never fly at 4096 before in FSX. I would only use 2048 because I knew the 4096, number one, seemed like overkill, and number two, I knew it was a vast problem waiting to happen. But here, they did it by default. So that's an even more astounding thing, is that I'm able to do some of these flights with settings I was never able to do in FSX, and behind the scenes, it's loading textures at 4096, which is just silly. Like, how efficient this thing is with VAS is crazy. I bet if you turn that down to 2048, I haven't gone into the CFG, but I may just go in there and turn it down to 2048, because, that'll just yield that much better performance for me. But I just thought it was really interesting that they did that. They upped it all the way up to 4096 by default. But anyway, so I did up it up in FSX to 4096 for this, stress test I was trying to do. And I remember I was in I think I was in a PMDG 737. And I remember I made it off the ground, and I began my turn out over the ocean, and boom, right there it died. So it, I'm willing to bet if you tried these settings in FSX, I'd be surprised if you even made it to KLGB. Nonetheless, make it over here to KONT by way of PDZ, and then just don't even think about going to PSP. It's just nuts what we're doing right now. So let's see. Why the sky got foggy like that. I guess maybe flying next to a cloud or something. I have no idea. I'm using the stock weather. I'm using the cold fronts weather theme. So that's why there's all these kind of tough looking clouds sitting around. And now that I'm thinking about it, I hope it looks pretty cloudy over there by PSP. I'm hoping it doesn't cover the place up so that you can actually see how amazing the autogen is there. So I don't know. We'll see if we can see the beautiful scenery over there. Alright, so we're coming up here to the edge of the KPSP scenery, and you can see immediately this ridiculously high ridiculously high mesh. That's over there to the left, right there on the left-hand side of the Banning Pass, right past Casino Morongo. There's actually a little airport down there. I don't remember what the name of that airport is. I think it may be the Banning Airport or the Hemet Airport. I'm not really sure, but I'm pretty sure it's the Banning Airport. And then Casino Morongo, and that's part of a big old Indian reservation out there. And the Cabazon outlets, you can actually see them right there. It's a big old shopping center, high-end shopping center with Gucci and Prada and all that stuff. All the stuff we can't afford because we spend all our money on virtual aircraft and sceneries. Here we go. These are the mountains on the right hand side of the Banning Pass. Sorry for the kind of twitchy head movement. I obviously am not using Track IR, but whatever. I guess I could use my mouse to look around and make it a little bit easier on you. Let's take a quick look outside. So, look at that autogen. Look at that photoreal scenery. I mean, ridiculous. You can see the hiking trails over there, for God's sakes. And it blends so well into the rest of FS Global. Sorry, into FTX Global, Orbix Global. I mean, it is gorgeous, 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 gorgeous stuff. Look at that, like, come on, is this real? It could be a Boeing promo shot right there. I want to see if I can see the lift. Sky lift, I believe it's called. Let me see if I can see it down here. Oh, there it is. So it's funny right here. You guys see the sky lift, which is if you're a follower of Air Daily X, which if you aren't, I recommend you do. Amazing website. DeAndre's a great guy. He was got an early preview of this scenery and was up there messing around with his helicopter, trying to land his helicopter on a bunch of little helipads that are here on this mountain lift. And it was funny, to say the least, to watch him try to land in that very difficult situation. But it made you really appreciate how ridiculously beautiful and detailed this area is. I mean, just look at those mountains, for God's sakes. And you can kind of see some of the community. Unfortunately, it looks like kind of the clouds are getting in the way. And what I could do is just switch to this view. There you go. And now you can see how ridiculous the scenery is. I mean, look at that. It's like some sort of like a wonderland. Zoom in. I mean, what is this? Ridiculous quality. So, now that we're here, speaking of ridiculous quality and ridiculous things, I bet I have ridiculous amounts of S usage. 3.3, so, I mean, come on. What can we, 3 did it just speak up to 3.4? I don't know. I mean, we are maxed out flying above a scenery that it could be a freaking driving simulator. It's so damn detailed. And although piss poor avionic performing aircraft, a very high quality texture and resolution and poly aircraft, and we have figured out how to survive what is now our 4th mega airport in a row. Although we didn't get that close to KONT, it still was drawn. We're using extremely high quality cloud textures, sky textures. We're flying over photoreal scenery at 4096 resolution and an ungodly amount of autogen. And we are alive somehow. So 3.3 gigs or so, it's going up and down. And we're on our way over to KONT, so I'm going to set up the approach, and then I'll kind of shut up, and you guys can enjoy the views. It'd be cool to look out at this passenger view that they have here. Right now, there we go. See the reservoirs down there. I don't know what they are, if they're like hydroelectric. If they serve a hydroelectric purpose or something, I don't know. And actually, if we look out, we'll probably see the windmills. Yeah, there are the windmills down there. Just one quick fact before I shut up is all these windmills that you see in this area, it's because the Banning Pass is a wind tunnel, a natural wind tunnel. So between these mountains over here and these mountains over here, what you end up having is a lot of the coastal air, cooler coastal air, and coastal winds that come out from the Los Angeles and Orange County areas. They push out here towards this very hot desert. So this desert, this is actually the 10 freeway, and this freeway goes straight from downtown Los Angeles out here, which will take you out towards, I believe it's like Arizona. This is the way you get out to Arizona. So it's an amazing wind tunnel, natural wind tunnel, and because of that cool air pushing through that hot air, naturally you get very high winds in the Banning Pass. It's actually, when I was a young